This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan is in Mobile today, so the Senior Bowl. He's co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. It's actually Football at 4:30 today, so we've switched a couple things around. But Adam is here to talk a little Birds, some football, the draft down in Mobile. The prospects are there. Adam Caplan, what's up, buddy?
Michael, good to talk to you. Yeah, this is my 23rd Senior Bowl, and my first Senior Bowl, the great Brian Westbrook was here out of Villanova.
Wow.
And here's the craziest thing is I'm driving. I flew with someone in scouting who is long gone from the Eagles and was with the Eagles then, and we talked about how Andy Reid was infatuated with what what Brian Westbrook could do in their offense. And little did they know that Westbrook, who really did well this week in 2002 and during the 3 practices, little did we know that he'd become an Eagle. But really an amazing story. And also in that class was Josh McCown, of course, a former Eagle quarterback at one time. And also Javon Walker, for those of you who really follow the league. So, yeah, it's this is where they say the draft gets started in Mobile. And by the way, the Eagles have a history of drafting players from Mobile or out of the Senior Bowl. Some have been successes, some have not. Obviously, Lane Johnson was one of the best. Obviously, he's going to be Hall of Famer someday. Broderick Bunkley, you might remember Broderick Bunkley, who was the first round out of Florida State, who had a great week here. Unfortunately, he was just kind of mediocre for the Eagles. And that's the one thing, Mike, that you want to be careful with. You don't want to overrate the 3 practices. There's no tackling at all. All zone coverage. There's no man-to-man defense other than there's on 1-on-1. So you got to be careful what you see and not overrate all of it.
Yeah, I know. They got the coordinators in play here now. So Vic Fangio official and Kellen Moore official. You got draft season here, and it'll be interesting to see with these new coordinators. I would imagine the defensive side of the ball is going to have a similar mindset in terms of the scheme. Kellen Moore, how does that change things on the offensive side?
Yeah, Mike, we haven't been here to talk to you about Kellen Moore yet. So, interesting addition. Of course, they know them from him being with Dallas for so many years as a player and then a coach. But the scheme is different. We're going to have more of this on our show tomorrow. Jeff, Moshe, and I. Jeff will be here tonight. We're going to do a show together here. But I'll give you a little sort of like a Cliff Notes version. Kellen Moore is a guy that highly respected, who runs a spread offense. Talking to people in coaching who've worked with him, he runs what we call an attack style offense. It's rare. You usually hear that about defense, Mike, but it's really offensively. They're going to be very aggressive. The vertical pass game is a big part of what he does. The Eagles did not do it as well as they did the year before. So that'll be a big part of it. The tight ends are a big part of it. So this is a really good scheme he runs. There's no question about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing the differences. And you're going to see them, not only A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but whoever their third receiver is going to be. And right now, Mike, they only have 3 receivers under contract for next season, A.J. Brown, Smith, and Britton Covey. Britton Covey's really just their punt returner. But that third receiver typically has value in Kellen Moore's offense because he runs a ton of what we call 11 personnel. 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 running back. And also running backs have done well, particularly Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard got that franchise tag on him because he had a great season in 22 with Kellen Moore.
I want to ask you about, because you look at the Eagles offense, yes, I think we all look at the third receiver on this team needs an upgrade. But if you look at Smith, Brown, Goddard, does one of those guys excite you more in this new potentially new scheme? I guess it's going to be interesting to see how they. Well, what was Sirianni saying? It's not his offense or my offense. It's going to be our offense. How are they going to mesh those together? But
yeah, and it's funny. It was Nick's offense before. Now that Nick knows that he had to change things up, it's now an Eagles offense. So yeah, I would say this is a good question. I'd say Dallas Goedert will benefit because he's not Mike. We know how talented he is, but he hasn't had that monster season yet. I'm not saying 100 catches, but if he could play. If he could play 15 games, why can't he not have 75 to 80 catches, if not more? I mean, he should be able to get 5 catches a game. I don't see why he can't do that. It's not just injuries. For some reason, he's not gotten the ball as much as he should. Particularly last year, when you look at it, the lack of use of the third receiver, and he still wasn't getting the ball. So I would think overall this will benefit. No, that's a good thought. And look, you can be fooled sometimes what you see in training camp by stuff and or OTAs, but I'm still looking forward to seeing what Moore does in their offseason program, because his offense, and you've seen it with Dalton Schultz a couple years ago, who signed a free agent deal with the Texans, but in 22 he did very well with Kellen Moore. And I definitely see Goddard doing well in this scheme.
Yeah, we're talking with Adam Caplan, who is in Mobile, Alabama for this year's Senior Bowl. You look on the defensive side of the ball and Fangio here. I had said before, all right, you get Fangio. They've now hired some more veteran position coaches around him. Okay, this is them saying, all right, we need to get a little bit more veteran names on that side of the ball. But you're at the draft process now. Is this a fait accompli to you that they target defense? They got 3 picks in the top 60.
Have to, Mike. I mean, they don't have a choice. I mean, the offense, I'm not worried about DeAndre Swift. Good player. He's a free agent. I'm sure they like to have him back, but money's always the issue. But the offense is not the problem. It's the defense. It's hard to win when you're not good enough. And they were not good enough on the back end. Everybody knows it. 2 older corners, both under contract. Bradbury should have been benched. He was not. Safety needs to be better than that, what it was last season. It was the Byard thing. I know people were on him. What happened. When you make a trade for a player at the trade deadline, and then very soon after you change your scheme. So think about it. He just was with the Titans. He had to forget that scheme. He had to learn the new scheme that Sean Desai was running, and then Desai gets reassigned, and they have to learn what Matt Patricia wanted to do. Think about how tough that must have been for him, smart as he is, and much as a veteran as he is. Things are going to have to change in the back end. Howie Roseman, the GM, has he's got a big challenge on his hands. And this secondary should look a lot different going into next season.
Were you, this all kind of happened last week, right? They had that whole press conference, and then the report came out in the middle of the press conference, and then he was named over the weekend here. So we knew Fangio, but when they hired, Saturday night, I guess, when they hired Kellen Moore, was that a name that kind of just popped in and that they acted on pretty quickly? Were you surprised that it kind of materialized that fast?
No, actually, I know they talked to him, and it was really Cliff Kingsbury and Kellen Moore were the two. But Kellen Moore is just better with pro concepts. And it was the timing to have it happen Saturday night was odd, but as we noted on when we did our last show, there were 2 or 3 other teams involved who were interested in Kellen Moore. And you got to give the Eagles credit, Sirianni and Roseman, to act on this very quickly, that they identified he's their guy. They know what he brings in, and it's really good for the pass target group because Moore has a history of putting up big numbers as an offense coordinator, and he probably would have with the Chargers had they not been so beat up physically. They lost Mike Williams in week 3 at the Vikings. That hurt them because they had big plans for him. So I look forward to seeing what this thing's going to look like. I'd be very optimistic. If I'm an Eagles fan, I'm loving that Kellen Moore's added. Fangio's one of the best in the last 20 years, 25 years, really. In fact, if you go back, he did an unbelievable job. People don't even know this who are too young, but he was a defensive coordinator for the expansion Panthers who shocked, remember, the late, great Sam Mills and Kevin Green, who's unfortunately passed away, and Lamar Lathan, who came out of nowhere. Everyone thought they had no chance to compete, and that was Vic Fangio. Most people don't know that. He was their defense coordinator for that incredible run. He's pretty much been good everywhere he's been. But I warn people, we're talking about, if you don't have any, how did he do without Pro Bowlers? No, I think if you really get the information correct, he's made Pro Bowlers. He's actually got guys to play at a Pro Bowl level. It's not the other way around. So I think sometimes we overrate stuff. Guy's really good, but look, it's hard to win when you're not good enough on the back end. In this scheme to work, because they don't blitz much, you have to have better talent at corner. And they've got to get younger there as well.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Adam. I'll throw it your way. This hire, you get him and the staff that you're bringing in here, I think this could be a signal similar to 2 years ago. They went out and got Reddick. They went out and got Bradbury. They traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They brought in Kaiser White. All right, we tried to go on the cheap last year with Evans and Edmonds, and I think we bring in Fangio. It's time that I think they're aggressive in free agency on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think, and Howie, one of the things he does really well is he will listen to his coaches. He hears them in their meetings in the spring. and right after the season's over. In this case, he's Fangio in there now. He's really got to push things forward here and figure out what Vic thinks he needs. And talking to coaches that have worked for the Eagles, no, Howie will listen. He does the best he can. Now, when
and Fangio has a more authoritative voice than Desai, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, but again, Howie will try to do the best he can. Now, the only thing is they have a belief at linebacker that they typically don't spend. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall with what Fangio thinks about their linebackers. Yeah. I'm just telling you, we'll have to see.
What are you looking at, and what are some of your in your mental assignments you're giving yourself down in Mobile?
One of the things I do, because I cover the entire league, not just one team, is that I look at the quarterbacks, and that's the first thing I look at. And I've seen him here. I've seen Carson Palmer here when he didn't really need to be in Mobile, but he did in 2003. Phillip Rivers. I was not here the year Donovan McNabb was. I was not at Senior Bowl here when McNabb was here, but I was looking at the quarterback position, and the best guy so far in day one was Michael Pratt, who's a Tulane quarterback, who's really talented. I was saying to someone in scouting, why is this guy not a first-round pick? I watched a lot of him on CBS Sports Network because they were on like every Saturday, it seemed. Kid's pretty gifted. They play in Temple's conference, I think.
Yep.
The American East. So I don't know why that people aren't talking about Pratt, but this is what the Senior Bowl does, Mike. It gives guys a chance sometimes who are not nationally known, and it puts them on the spotlight for the media and obviously in scouting, just to make sure that he's going against the best senior players. And I get it; it's only a couple days of practice, and today was the first day of practice. By the way, there were back-to-back practices at Hancock Whitney Stadium at University of South Alabama. Pratt's a kid. If you're in the scouting, and I know a lot of people listen like the scouting process. He's a kid you're going to hear me talk a lot about, and others as well. I'm sure our man DeCecco will be talking about him going forward.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, everybody. The Inside the Birds podcast. They're recording one tonight. It'll drop tomorrow with Jeff Mosher and this man, Adam Caplan. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Adam Caplan, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds.